E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Benvenuti.
Welcome to this session on TV news, but this is going to be a very comprehensive debate on the role of TV news in the world of the media and democracies. I want to welcome Giuseppe De Bellis, Director of Sky TG24, Paolo Liguori, Editorial Director of TGCom24, Enrico Mentana, who is connected with us, the director of TG La 7. There he is. Hello. Thank you for being with us. Paolo Petrecca, director of Rai News 24. Antonio Preziosi, director of TG2. I will start with a quote from philosopher Hannah Arendt that I think you all know, who said, without information based on facts and information that is not manipulated, the freedom of opinion is a joke. Information is vital for social coexistence and democracy. Through information, we can make decisions, we can make informed opinions, we can know what's happening and the underlying reasons. However, most citizens do not have access to information directly, so they need the media, someone mediating information, hoping that the media are reliable and can explain difficult facts, which is very hard work, quite complicated. We're going to talk about that. In the past, there used to be newspapers, radio news, and TG news. Today, we have the internet with all its platforms. We have search engines, there is the social media, and there is also artificial intelligence, which can enhance or manipulate information. So, my first questions, and we'll start in alphabetical order, is what is the impact in this new context with a lot of changes with AI technologies, as in what is the role of TV news? What is the impact of TV news on democracy of a country, which somewhat tends to be polarization? Are TV news worth our trust or not? Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here. It is always a pleasure to be at the meeting. The question is quite complex, but this is what we do every day. We provide information, but we also think about our role and what we do. Yes, TV news are factors for stabilization and mediation of what is happening, so they are vital for democracy and for social and peaceful coexistence. But there is a difference maybe between the TV news and the rest of the information providers. Well, actually, there is no difference between them. We all provide TV news and information, but we also provide information on all the different platforms. Those that started to work in newspapers now are also working on television. For example, you started working for newspapers. Yes. So we are going through times of major polarizations, but media are also converging. Today, we have better understood the main characteristics and specificities of each platform, starting from the television. And therefore, we can be more effective in our mediation role. there are many platforms, and therefore we can target many more people than in the past. The market is extremely fragmented, so those that were watching the TV news on one channel now also know about the TV news on other channels, because all the other platforms enable people to get in contact with all the different TV news. And this is a public service, even if there are private and public platforms. Hence, we have an increasing responsibility in mediation, responsibility that by nature we've always had. So at a time of major polarization, our role is a decisive one, and it has to focus on trust building with the audience. So there must be trust between information providers and information beneficiaries. Television is still the main tool for information with the Italian population. But in the future, our ability to be present on the different platforms will help us decreasing polarization. If we are good at making people understand that the context where information is provided is oftentimes more important than the information itself. We need to explain the context in which the information is provided. Otherwise, we cannot work properly. So there are different platforms, but there is also a convergence. Paolo Liguori, the floor is yours. Thank you for inviting me here. I went back in time because I came back to the meeting after a long while. I haven't been here. The meeting is a place of culture, but it's also a place of friendship. That was the case, and that is still the case, as I've seen today. My answer to your question is yes. The information is vital for democracy. With no information, there is no democracy. Today, there are democratic countries and non-democratic countries, and the difference is made through the information. Countries where information is disseminated are democratic countries. Those where there is less information or misinformation are less democratic countries. Let me add that I started working for newspapers many years ago. Television has always been very interesting for me. But I was one of Mentana's pupils as far as television is concerned. I was working with him for a few months with him because I was coming from newspapers and I didn't know the television when I started working for the television. So I was sent to Mentana to learn how to make a TV news. I share what the Bellis has said. This debate has been well organized because we have here a point of reference. I mean, TV news have a sort of impact of information. It is the sum of different pieces of information that are given day by day. But we are now submerged by information today. There's too much information today, and we don't have many abilities to choose. As for complexity, we also have less freedom because our world is not just complex, but also compressed. Sometimes journalists tend to be self-referential. Then there is the concept of political correct. We have to be careful on what we say, on what we do. There are some people who are good, and there are some people who maybe are less good, and then they have problems. The point is that we are very compressed. So in the past, we had more freedom to choose. We had fewer choices, but we were more free. Then we could get things wrong. But that was not a major problem. Today, in order not to be wrong, you have to do something. I'm not just working on television. I'm also working on the radio and the internet. And my colleagues are in the same situation. But under this complex situation, you must try and still be free. Just think about the major topics. Here we are in a context of believers and Christians. If I tell you what the Pope has said, we need peace. Okay, we say it, but who should I say that to? Who's going to make peace, though? But what kind of peace? The right one? Then when you start talking like this, it means that you want to wage war. There's a famous war in Korea that never ended. There has just been a truce. There has never been peace, but a truce was needed. Otherwise, the United States and China would have waged a war. Like, you don't know how to say that today. And this is true also for other contents, social contents, for example, topics concerning economy. You don't know how much you can say. So we have to provide democratic information, but it's complicated. It's difficult. There is not much freedom, and we cannot take freedom. Many people try to be free, but only when it's easy to be free. When it is a topic concerning society, you always have to be very careful. And I'm not usually afraid. And then I'll stop here because I leave the floor to my colleagues. Enrico Mentana. So we've heard that you helped Paolo Liguori. Maybe you can also help us. Yes. I don't want to be reported to the police for that. But let me say something. I started working at TG1, one of the main TV news in Italy. I was 25. It was 1980. That summer, there was a Solidarnosc revolution and Lech Walesa. At that time, it was very easy for political forces and journalists to take a stance. So we could take a stance because people were asking for freedom in a regime. Many years later, today, we know that things are very fragmented, and there are different opinions and stances on the two wars underway. So our context today is made more complex by the collapse of oppositions based on political ideologies that came about after the Second World War. So we see that there is an increasing questioning of objective information. We see that in the way wars are presented and discussed. We see that with the political oppositions, which are found on personal political parties, and the way you tell the stories resonates with the political stance of the different TV channels. And Donald Trump in the United States, during the electoral campaign of 2016, called all that the facts that can be questioned. I mean, in each statement, there is someone attacking and someone defending themselves. That same statement can be questioned in many different ways, with facts or not. For the 7th of October, the pogrom of Hamas, yes, but there was a specific situation. And that also applies to individual statements. You said that, and then the other one says, well, no, I didn't say that. So there are different levels to be considered. That applies to wars or the fights between political leaders in an electoral campaign. So everything can be questioned in the world of information. It is not by chance that all the sources of information, not just the TV news, try to find a shelter in facts, in order to arouse the interest of viewers and the audience. Think about what is happening in the newspapers today. Newspapers are competing harshly today, and this is quite clear. We, experts, the day before, can imagine the titles coming out in the newspapers on specific facts. And some newspapers maybe exploit the situation. For example, if journalists are hit, or if maybe a list of a new party is disseminated, well, the newspapers can take a stance. On television, something happened. Now, TV news is no longer the focus of attention. Talk shows are. TV news are not criticized unless politics is being discussed. Actually, the focus is on the places where politicians, directly or indirectly through their journalists, to make the rules of the game. However, this doesn't enable us to make progress in information, because talk shows are taking a clear stance, both at left and at right, where all the guests have a clear stance on the different topics. One is in favor of migration, the other one is against. So we always have talk shows that are black and white. This has led to an information system which now can be questioned, and therefore information is instrumentally used. This is the situation. It is unthinkable that if you are from the left, you want to have all migrants, and if you are from the right, you want to close the doors. As for other serious topics concerning the future of Italy, including migration, not in terms of arrival of illegal migrants, but we need to understand what to do in the country, but also with reference to wars, there are instrumental positions, stances, newspapers and TV news only have to tell things, have to take a stance, and then to keep on that stance. But the TV news, the newspapers, and the radio news day by day are losing weight because most people under 30 get information only through smartphones and through those news given by websites which are not highly recommendable. This is the problem. There are people that haven't been reading the newspapers or haven't been watching the TV news for many years. Many youth have never done so. And even newspapers are anachronistic. And then young people now just want to learn what they're interested in when they want to receive the information. And if you consider our average age, we're not thinking about the world of tomorrow, but still for a little time of the world of yesterday, of the past. Thank you. Paolo Petrecca. Thank you very much for inviting me here. This is a way to talk to some colleagues like Enrico, who said something very clever and very wise, just like Paolo and Giuseppe beforehand. Let me start from something different. We must make a technical difference between TV news and all news. Enrico is making a TV news on La 7 on a TV channel, which when talking about the war in Ukraine or on the 7th of October, makes some special broadcasts, which can hardly be done in RAI. Hence, the function of the public service. Providing information through TV news is one thing. Providing information with all news is something different. We are the only channel which operates all day round, and we are the only one. We provide live news, as happened last night. And so we are even more responsible for what we communicate. RAI News was set up in 1999 and then developed. Different factors came about, like the social media, communication through platforms. As the Bellis said, we have understood what they are doing. But is it really so? Have we really understood how social networks are working? Because I think that most information that cannot be checked that comes from the internet. And definitely, this is news information which can hardly be controlled. So in the past, there were newspapers, there were agencies, we could check the sources. Today, this is much more complicated. For people like me, working on websites, social network, and television is complicated. This year, we have created the WhatsApp channel, which is booming. Today, there's 5 million contacts every day on the website, and 900,000 people are checking our WhatsApp news every day. The people are more and more thirsty for news on smartphones. My son is 25. I can check the sources of information, or maybe I can understand whether the information is right or wrong. I don't know whether the youth can do that. I don't know whether they can check the sources of information. So our responsibility in the private sector is very high, even for those on commercial television. Here we are at the meeting in Rimini. Let me make a quote, because I was always struck by when the truth talked by Jesus and Pilato. What is truth? Pilato says. If every journalist working everywhere would wonder about the truth, and was not piloted by someone else. Liguori talked about the standardization. Our information was pretty much standardized. Many newspapers came out with the same headlines. Some directors even agreed to give standard headlines. Today, there is increasing diversification with different goals. We need to question the fact that maybe we can no longer find the truth. So we have to search for the truth, and maybe we also need to change goals. Some newspapers want to be sensational only. Just in the past few days, for example, have a look at the newspapers in the past week. Just count the number of times they mentioned Kamala Harris and they mentioned Trump. So there is an attempt to provide guidance to the public opinion, to the audience. So there are two main things. There are different models, so we need to provide information, comprehensive information, which is a duty which is incumbent upon us, and this is our own responsibility. And we have to try not to be standardized and influenced so that we can tell the truth. Then I could get into details by providing you some numbers. Enrico was saying that the youth are not watching television. This is true. But according to Ipsos surveys, the television is still the most common tool. The TV news are more watched than the internet. This is going to come to an end sooner or later, but we have to be concerned about how our children and the future directors of TV news will manage to search for the truth while being objective. Thank you.
So we'll certainly get back to some of the topics you've mentioned. The floor to Antonio Preziosi. Thank you very much, President Scholz. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the possibility you've given us to, as for myself, to be back here to the meeting of Rimini. Speaking as the last person has an advantage. Many interesting things have already been mentioned, but it also entails a small advantage, that of giving me the opportunity to make an effort to bring a testimony or to give something more to the audience. As for President Scholz's question, whether there is an interest for democracy when it comes to the information and the news. The answer is obviously yes. The information is essential, is the essence, one of the essences of democracy, to follow up on the title of the Rimini meeting. But the reflection should also focus on our own work, on our own role. When I accepted the assignment to be the director of the TG2, I was afraid. I must confess that I was afraid to accept. The challenge was that of directing historical, important broadcaster of the public service. So I had to bring forward this tradition. And the second commitment was that of bringing forward this challenge for the future. And when I was drafting the editorial plan, I took comfort from a sentence I read from President Mattarella's speech to the journalists, and he focused on the importance of quality information for our democracy. So I thought that the key word, what really makes a difference for us, so that we can face the challenges for the future with confidence, is this keyword, quality information. Quality information for those engaged in the public service, as the Bellis said, rightly, all of us carry out a public service. So providing information is not only respecting pluralism, impartiality, and correctness of the information, and this gives credibility. All these elements gives credibility to our job, but also trying to give something more to the audiences, to those watching the newscasts. I drafted a concept map. I thought that the newscast should have 3 points of reference. First of all, the completeness of information. There are no piece of news exists that cannot be given, or uncomfortable pieces of news. If a news is a piece of news, it needs to be provided, it needs to be given. So we need to be clear enough. We have the duty to be clear enough for the audience. Enzo Forcella, a right director of 1959, an essay titled 1,500 Readers, he said that the political and parliamentary information was reduced to the attention of 1,500 people, no more than that, because it was these news were given with a difficult language, a language only for experts that aimed to convey messages to one party or another. I seldom go through that essay, and I find it very, very topical. So we need to be clear. We need to use a clear language. And then the immediacy of information. Being massively informed, as Paolo Liguori said, does it mean that you are better informed? Paolo said no, and I agree with him. This imposes a greater attention to us. We need to make some differences. My newscast is different from the all news newscasts of the other broadcasters, but my newscast, nonetheless, has a task to give the breaking news live, to talk about possible new elements while we are on air. The breaking news needs to be given, but it needs to be given with great attention. News, provided it's a true piece of news, rather than being the first one to give a piece of news which is not true, which is a fake. So we need to give more, starting from our roots, and give a future information to our information and to our job. This is my commitment, not limiting myself to simply telling the news the way they are offered, but rather offering the audience a sort of a toolkit to be able to process the news they listen to. I will give you some concrete examples. We talk a lot. Unfortunately, we talk very often about violence against women. We have the chronicle of the facts, but there is also an opportunity to offer to the audience some methods for which we tell these people, listen, it is possible to prevent these events. It is possible to find out which signs are there. It is possible to ask for help. It is possible not to be alone in these events. Then another example, the topic of the economics are so complex and so difficult to understand. When I was the director of a radio broadcasting channel with Professor Curto, we invented the economics in small parts. We sort of created crumbles of economic news so that they could be understood by all the listeners, especially those who needed to invest their savings. And then Europe. Europe is narrated, is told in a bad way. And too little is said about Europe. But we need to be aware of the fact that in Europe, at the European Union level, many decisions are made that have repercussions for all the European citizens. And this is why I wanted to dedicate this part to two late colleagues. One is Antonio Megalizzi. He was a young journalist. He was in Strasbourg, and he was one of the victims of a terrorist attack by the ISIS. And the other person is Daphne Caruana Galizia. She was a journalist from Malta, and she was killed because she had found out the truth. And she reported the organized crime in Malta. And she was killed for that. And we should also make an extra effort when it comes to these elements, when it comes to these aspects. And then we have young people. That's another topic we're dealing with. We often think that we can draw the attention of the young people by talking to youngsters. But I think we should stop talking to the youngsters. We should talk with the young people. And an example was given to me last year when there was a dramatic road accident in which in Casal Palocco one very young boy was killed because of a challenge on the web, which led to this crazy action that took the life of this very young boy. We not only told the audience about this event, but we asked some influencers to create some messages for the TG2 to reach the young people directly in order for them to understand the lack of value of what was happening, of this kind of challenges. These are just some examples, some ideas that I would like to provide after answering yes to President Scholz' question, and hopefully truth is a pathway which has to be chased by everybody, not only by journalists. And so this is the wish and my desire for this year's meeting. Thank you. So considering that each of you was able to deal with very different aspects on the same topic, I have no problems in asking the second question, and we will follow the same order of intervention. So time flies, so I have another question, but including two topics. First of all of you have already dealt with this topic. As for pluralism of the media and newscasts, is this pluralism an aid for you and for the citizens? And then the second topic, complexity. A form of reducing complexity is that of reducing everything to the juxtaposition of opinions on what's happening. So I simplify a problem because I state the right-wing parties state as follows, and the left-wing parties and funds says as follows. So you've talked about Europe. In many cases, Europe is told in a very simplistic way. We hear different opinions, but nobody has a clear idea of what's really happening, not to mention the wars in Palestine or in Ukraine. So I understand that it is very difficult for a newscast or a similar forms, similar information forms as newscasts. In your opinion, is it possible to guarantee a minimum of reliability and a trust-based climate, trust-based atmosphere vis-à-vis the audience and vis-à-vis these thorny questions? So I will answer the first question with a clear yes. Pluralism of voices, the many voices for information is an aid to us all dealing with information, because all of us look at each other. We read everything that can be read when it comes to written information. We have a look at the platforms, and this inevitably enriches our ability to talk about the news and to be even more profound when giving information. I think that this is also true for the public opinion. As Paolo said, it is true that we are flooded with information, but it is also true that this happens despite our willingness to receive or not an information. When we are interested in a certain piece of information, we have access to so many sources that if we are really interested, we can have an in-depth view of a specific question, and we can analyze it as much as we want. This country has no problem when it comes to freedom of information, regardless of the rankings saying that Italy fares better or worse. We are a country where information is free. If we feel if we feel the information is conditional upon a political party or another, this is applicable to all the countries. And this is, maybe Paolo mentioned earlier that the fact that democracy is assessed according to the degree of freedom of speech and freedom of information. When it comes to the complexity, I don't think there's an era which is more complex and more complicated than this one for us. We need to face a greater complexity, as Enrico said. We are living in a world that is that has lots of derivatives vis-à-vis the past. There are no longer big ideologies, and we no longer have political or cultural big points of reference. For those who deal with information, this is extremely complex. However, our task is that of summarizing, making a synthesis of that complexity, and I think that this is a challenge that those engaged in information are fighting for. So those who will come after us will understand whether we, living a complex period, were able to coexist with the complexity and to solve complexity. But this is in the hands of the future generations. But I believe that the plural platforms and the multi-platforms can help. It is true that we no longer intercept an audience directly or automatically. But thanks to the multiple platforms, we managed to reach the audience diagonally, so to say. So this leads to a change of professionalism, to a change of paradigm for all of us. And as for my channel, this element has been a revolution. We were born with the idea to bring a neutral, independent channel, broadcaster in a country that was polarized by three private broadcasters, three public broadcasters, in a period in which you were either pro-Berlusconi or against Berlusconi, and that was the only key for reading things. And then Sky came forward proposing something new for Italy. After 21 years, today, we continue to carry out this role, but we change the way in which we carry out this task. For instance, following up on what you said, being neutral doesn't mean that you give a voice in the same way to the majority and the opposition. This means par condicio as an extremist factor. We do it, of course, it is undeniable, but what we do with a greater strength is having our own voice, being able to read what's happening and having the skills to explain without other voices, explaining what's happening without other voices or without resorting to those saying black or saying white. Starting having an in-depth analysis so that you, as a journalist belonging to a broadcaster or a newscast, you are able to encrypt something which is, to decipher something which is very complex, either a war or the pogrom of the 7th of October or economic aspects. Economy has been recently one of the dominating factors in the newscasts. For years, we've talked only or almost exclusively about economics. And this led to a greater professionalism on the part of journalists. And today, this has to be a common, a widespread skill, knowledge among all the journalists. So you need to be a professional when it comes to economics. And this also applies to other domains. And this leads journalists to be more independent, more of interpreters, and more able to decipher a complexity which objectively is the common challenge that we have, especially the challenge for the public, for the audience, being subject to that complexity. So, Mentana practically forced me to say that I'm the oldest journalist. No, I refuse to talk about the future generations. That would be a matter of the future generations, just as we came after our ancestors. So let's think about ourselves, and let's back to something which refers to Mentana. We will be included in the same list, I think, although we are from different TVs. No, we profess the same religion. I'm a Catholic. I understood it well, and we love each other in a certain way. But you said something which was a hint for me. You said that information is now limited to talk show, either black or white or red or blue. You have talk shows constantly on every broadcaster. So we know it. We know the reason for this. We know this very well because this was one of the topics of our discussion. Because talk shows do not cost a thing. You have 4 guests, you provide €1,000, you give €1,000 per guest, and you tell them you will support that part, you will support the other opinion. And in the end, all the talk shows are very, very similar to one another. And this replaces a quality newscast, which is expensive. It's always been expensive to provide news, to provide information. It is very expensive both for private and public broadcasters. I will mention a paradox. I need to do it. Complexity, as the Bellis said, complexity is a battle we've been fighting. I don't know what will be the outcome of that. I know that we will lose the battle in the end. We are losing the battle to explain complexity. I have not been fascinated by positivism for many years now, so I must say what I see. We are losing this battle, and it has to do with you, not only with us. I know we're losing this battle because I see it every day. And this is a paradox. When the president asked us about pluralism, whether pluralism helps you or not. Apparently, it does help us, but maybe not. So I'll tell you the following. Information to me is like a religion. Ecumenism, in your opinion, does ecumenism contribute to clarity and truth? More than having the foundations of a religion. I'm not talking about the Catholic religion. I'm also referring to the Muslim religion, to Islam. Do you think that ecumenism, and it's stating that I'm interested in all religions, which means not in being interested in nothing in the end. So I say that information for me is the same thing. This pluralism, if you think about a pluralism based on talk shows which are all identical, you have talk shows in the Rai broadcaster, in La Sette, in Mediaset broadcasters, etc. Future, this is what's happening, and it would be a tragedy if this were the future. The money is the only element. It is fundamental. It's a fundamental element for TV. And the public service does its part. And the public service also has the same difficulties. Many of the quarrels, of the fights that we see every day are considered to be ideological, but in many cases they are a suffering. Maybe the public service should have more resources, more freedom. We should not focus on the future generations. We should focus on our work, on our job today, with more reports, with an in-depth analysis of the news. And there are spaces. If there are spaces, let's use the spaces on the TVs, on the broadcasters for information, rather than for talk shows lasting until 1 a.m. And nobody manages to watch a talk show until it's over. And they need to last for so many hours because they need to be in competition with other TV programs, which are very expensive and which are financed with a lot of money. Shows and entertainment. This is a very difficult topic. We need to face this topic. You cannot do newscasts. You cannot have a TV. You cannot have a broadcaster without money. And everybody knows that you need to save money. The battle is complicated. The paradox is that, to summarize, we are losing the battle to summarize complexity. We are becoming marginalized. We have a very limited domain in which we can move. And this is annoying to me. We are confronted with this situation now, and we are in the front row, and we are sorry when we have so limited space. You've listened to other opinions, more optimistic than my own, but it's the same thing, and I will stop here.
Enrico Mentana.
Mentana, are we losing or are we winning the battle? We have an advantage. As I said, and Paolo further reiterated, our generation will soon come to an end. We were young in the 1968. The world is radically changed. We try to update and to adapt. But I was talking about the advantages and the disadvantages of talk shows. This is what enables us to have a role, to play a role. The director of TV news and TV news cannot be a place where you can be in favor or against, where you put on an equal footing those who are in favor of Ukraine and those who are in favor of Russia, those who are for or against vaccines. This is the point. TV news have to respect the pluralism, but must have real values. I've never hosted the no-vax in my TV news. I've never invited some person not believing in COVID. I've never given the voice to people saying that Putin didn't cause the war because the war already existed. Because otherwise, we should also host the people saying that mafia doesn't exist, or that you may be in favor of the death penalty against the Constitution. And I can give you many more examples. Is it right to be atheists as against those who are in favor of the Pope? It would be very bad, because it would mean that the TV news doesn't have a specific line. So TV news must be acknowledged, because with reference to holy principles and basic principles and topics, they must not ambiguous. There must be no ambiguity, as in they must have a clear stance. They must be clear towards their audience. Otherwise, why should we have a mixed system? Here we represent different TV news, and there are also other directors of other TV news that could sit in the session, at least 10 of them. So should the TV news all be the same? Definitely, certainly not. In my opinion, the important result of pluralism is that we can provide a specific guideline, not just because the anchorman or the anchorwoman is nice, or because the TV news take place at a certain time of the day, but the audience has to know that the TV news have certain ideas, and this means consistency. Even if for the umpteenth time you are saying that there is an aggressor and there is a victim, the audience always have to know where they are and what kind of TV news they're watching. Thank you, Enrico. But I want to thank all of you for being so honest in speaking about the problems of your job. So we understand the difficulties that you have and the different ways in which you tackle these problems. And so I can talk about pluralism. Yes, I know that everyone knows about my editorial effort. Enrico talked about the editorial line of TV news. A director has to give a certain editorial line, has to give a certain character to the TV news or the TV channel and to information. I'll be the director of Rai News 24 and Televideo and RaiNews.it for 3 years. Televideo is a tool that is still used by many people. And at the end of these 3 years, I think I gave a clear editorial line, and I paid a personal price for that in order to be pluralistic. The public service has some responsibilities, and we have to tell the news and the facts. And we have to try to be as pluralistic as possible. So we have to provide information without becoming instrumental. And following up to what you said on content, we have to be specific about things and to talk about things in detail. We have made a lot of inquiries. For example, we talked about chicken farms, and we talked about the things that they were doing that couldn't be done. We went to Butcher, where we saw corpses in the middle of the street. So we made inquiries and different types of reports. We made at least 100 of them recently. After the 7th of October, we went to visit the settlers' houses. We did many things. And it is us going towards the audience and whereby we can go deep into the information that we want to provide. So the final goal is to tell the truth in a pluralistic way, while speaking in depth about the different topics. I am very optimistic, Paolo. I believe that we are going to win the battle, because whether it's going to be us or the people after us, I'm over 60, so I'm not young anymore. It's not just you who are old. I mean, for the next 5 years, I will try to win this battle, trying to increase the number of young people watching us, and trying to reverse the trend. On television, we're talking about the internet, whereas we have to try and see things the other way around. The television has to penetrate the internet. Today, we have many broadcasts telling stories. We are all news, so to us, the audience is not the most important thing. I have the largest number of people in the audience in the morning, and sometimes TG1 has still the audience that was with me and that will watch the TV news. So in the morning, we have a lot of people in the audience, and then there is a decrease in the number of people in the audience at lunchtime. And then in order to come back with the same number of audience, we always have to look at the truth, and we have to tell things so that they are as pluralistic as possible, and we have to get deep into the topics. Antonia, I'll be the last one. And I also had the countdown now. Here there is a clock and a timer telling us that sometimes we have to stop. But we're not as strict as you are. Well, we have a gong in political debate. At the end of the time given, there was a gong and microphones were muted. So I'll be very quick, because the important things have already been said. No, we're not afraid of competition. We're all directors of TV news, and potentially we are competing against one another or each other. But the debate on pluralism and what has been said on pluralism is true and can just be shared. Pluralism is an asset on which we all agree. We watch each other's TV news not to copy, not to check one another, but because just in comparing our products, we can understand if our job, if we're working well or not. Just like Paolo Petrecca, I do not totally agree with Paolo, because he says that the game of pluralism and complexity is now being lost from us. I don't know if we're winning that battle, but actually we are playing the game. We're definitely playing the game. We are working. We're putting all our passion, all our courage, all our strength in a very complex society where it is necessary to go back to the essential. I wrote in my Facebook page a sentence of the first letter of St. Paul Apostle. He said, just go through anything, everything, and just keep what is good. In these hard times, we have to be increasingly curious and to get closer to each source of information. And based on that, and we need to keep what is good, not just for us, but also for our audience. When I'm told that the TG2 Post is a place where everyone can say what they think without shouting, it's a reason of joy for me, because this is what I want to do. I want to talk about and present complexity so that anyone can build their own ideas. So for our audience and for ourselves, we have to examine what is everything and to keep what is good, while being professional and while following our code of ethics, because the world is so complex, and therefore we need to be engaged in understanding this complexity. Thank you very much. I would have liked to ask many more questions, but sorry. Probably I totally disagree with the others. I'll just give you an example for the reason why I'm not that optimistic, so that people will understand that I didn't go crazy. If there was a television on the one end and the internet and the social network on the other, I don't know whether we're going to win or lose. But actually, I think that we are losing the game, because the space that is given to talk shows is denied to information, to TV news. Whereas documentaries that are made well and journalistic products not done by us but by documentarists, and they have ample space. And they are disseminated on the platforms. On the TV, many people go to the platform to watch these products. These products have been stolen from information from the TV news. In our television now there are talk shows, and these products are made by wonderful journalists who work on platform rather than in television. And I'm always saying that to my students. Those of you who are very good will work for successful products. And at an international level, it's the same. You've seen journalists are working and making broadcasts on Narcos, for example, with very detailed information. This has not always been the case. Before, platforms did not exist, but platforms have now arrived. And as we're now seeing, because it's all a question of money, they are stealing information from us. This is why I'm pessimistic, not because I'm crazier. So we could continue talking forever. See you at the next meeting to continue discussing about that, because we haven't even touched upon the audience. But there are people after us in this room with another session, so we need to close the session. Just let me say in the end that providing information today in a reliable way, taking into account of all the problems, is very complex. And we have to take that into account so that we can understand how much information is complex. We depend on information, but we don't always have to stick to slogans. The meeting, in many sessions, talked about problems and topics in a very transparent way to increase the reliability of our interlocutors. Because if a problem does not become transparent, then maybe it does not provide a clear stance. So since providing information is difficult, we have tried to provide information as transparently as possible. Thank you very much for your contributions of today, and see you next time. Thank you.
civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia?